Welcome to Series 3 of the Callisto Grand Big Change podcast. In this series, we explore and reveal the personal and professional sides of senior executives from large companies. Reaching the top in any field is never straightforward, requiring many years of personal investment and dedication. I'm Mark Harrison, founder of Callisto Grand, and today we promise you a super inspiring chat with Raymond van der Loos, the global executive and chairman of the Atradius Collections Holding BV. Atradius are highly respected global providers of trade credit insurance, surety and debt collection services. So, good morning, Raymond.
Good morning, Mark, and thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm already honored, basically, for your invite and also highlighting me, as one of these inspiring leaders. So I hope to fulfill your needs, to this interview and the situation, of course, for the audience there. So, but thank you.
Well, we're looking forward to it very much, and our paths have crossed frequently over the years, and I always find it interesting that your social network posts are invariably coming from all over the world. So, how did it all start?
Yeah, so how it all started was that basically on the back of credit insurance, we had a recovery unit. Which was purely there for the insurance as a basically a service, and we basically gave that its own identity. So we actually transitioned that, to become an own business with its own focus and own identity going forward. And based on that, we expanded that in the direction, of course, of customers. And our mission in life, is there to help and support our customers wherever they trade. To strengthen them in their credit management and receivable management, so they can basically grow and expand in those new markets. So that is our mission in life, and that's how we are developing the business.
When you joined Atradius, it was about 15 years ago. How was that then?
Yeah, like I was saying, it was a recovery unit. Basically, that was very attached on that moment to the insurance side. We were in 8 countries. And like I said, we basically integrated that as one unit, which has one integrated system, but also technology, with a specific focus and direction to customers locally, to their own customs. And we expanded that model as we wanted to be there wherever they trade, to now 34 countries, which has been an amazing journey, because what we do, of course, is attach all these different cultures, values, but also ways of working, because the way you work basically in these different countries is totally different, to be able to complement basically our customers in their credit management. So when they do their activities, we try to then take it over where they cannot collect themselves. And of course, those rules, customs are totally specific to the countries, and then we have the local people to execute on that.
Okay, we'll explore more about your global traveling and so on a bit later on. So, where are you from originally?
Yeah, so I'm originally from The Hague, the Netherlands. Brought up in a neighborhood really of workers, and I was born on the 31st of December. 1969, so a beautiful day just before entering into a new century, so I was quite excited. I didn't know it on that moment, but I started and was born, on the last day of the 60th century.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're born in The Hague, and so you come from near the sea. Is that important to you? Is that always like a draw, having to be by the sea at times?
Yeah, absolutely. If you walk here in the city, you're 10 minutes away, from the sea, and you can feel the wind. Basically, sometimes you even can smell the salty sea water. Every week I go either for a walk, but also play with my friends rugby, touch rugby on the beach. And that gives you then, if you have a very intense job, just to relax, and be there and be there close to nature. I also realized that when I moved for my job, to Brussels for 3 years, there I wasn't so close to the sea, and then you really realize, how good it feels to have that opportunity, to actually go and just spend some time, close to the sea.
I totally agree with that, and that's why I wanted to ask. Being English, and I'm living in Brno at the moment, so I'm like 800 kilometers away from like the nearest sea, and I'm missing it like hell right now. So growing up then in The Hague and so on, what are your recollections of your early days as a child and growing up?
My family and my father, are coming, out of the delicates shop. So basically, they sell, goods, to customers, and special products. And of course, that was not an easy life. Hard work, 6 days a week working, early standing up of my father. So waking up of my father like 6 o'clock, being back at home at 7. In that also customer service and entrepreneurship, are really important aspects. So that is really truly in my blood. So I was brought up since 5 years. I probably joined sometimes my father, going into his shop and helping him, but also, spending time on that moment. You didn't have internet or anything like that. What did you do? You went outside, to play with your friends on the street, so you were like on the street in a neighborhood where, there was a lot of labor work, so people just enjoyed themselves as kids, going outside and playing with their friends.
Were you expected to follow into the family business?
Good question. You would logically say that. I did spend quite some time with my dad in his shops. Like I said, when I was 5, I was already helping him as a little kid, and I was proud about that. Sometimes, most of the time Saturdays, but also in summer periods, I would work at his shop, because I had to earn some money, to basically for holidays or spending money and going to the bar, also having a drink, but also for my studies. In school, basically, I clearly developed myself well. I had quite some high marks, and I was also able to go to university. So my dad quite early, realized that the path, going to be succeeding him in his shop was not the way forward. And he really left the opportunity for myself also to make my own choices and also to follow my own direction. So that's the direction I went, and he left me to that.
As you were finishing school and going to university, you said you were pushing yourself, and you were gonna you weren't going to work in the deli and things like that. So were you kind of starting to formulate a notion of where you were going to go?
Basically, as I was going to high school, I loved to go to school because one side to meet my friends, but I was also quite ambitious and competitive. Getting high marks was also giving me a piece of recognition, So without that, I knew it. I was actually going into a track for a university because you have different tracks in the Netherlands you can follow. And then I was quite good with numbers. Always because of my family background, having to calculate and turn around each dime, of course. So economics was really that part that was in me. I really was good at those two elements, numbers and economics. So I went to university with the mindset to go and study accountancy. And when I was in university, I didn't followed that track, but I did find out that it was quite structured, but also sometimes sorry to say, but sometimes also a little bit boring. So I then developed actually more to the soft side, which was more around management, internal organization, as also marketing, which drew me more, maybe also because of that entrepreneurship view, that I always had to look at, okay, what could I bring new to the market or bring to the market in the right way. So that was the direction I completed my studies with.
I get that, and I think being an entrepreneur is about being creative as well,
Yep.
isn't it? And imaginative and pushing boundaries,
Yep.
and not accepting limitations. And so having known you for a while, I can see that a career in kind of fairly rigid accountancy, where there are fixed rules and perhaps
Yep.
only so much you can do, that there's a shelf life to that, I think, isn't it? If you got the entrepreneurial gene. Yeah.
True. Yeah. The interesting thing is now I'm actually in this direction between, because accounts receivables management, as also, of course, entrepreneurship. How can we help customers? That customer service, it's actually all coming back, in that new setting. So still that background of economics, but also those numbers and how and what helps and what is important, in the way of also management, it still comes back. So it's interesting how those components then later on in your life actually come back. So sometimes things don't happen for nothing. That's what I say always.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, and no experiences are wasted, for better or for worse, are they?
Absolutely.
You mentioned earlier about you still play touch rugby.
Yep.
And I know we spoke before that you played, Rugby Union, 15-a-side and so on.
Yep.
It's not something that is kind of synonymous with the Netherlands. How did that evolve? And rugby has this kind of correlation with business. And what would you say are the attributes you take from rugby into your working life?
Yeah, valid point to say that you wouldn't expect it in the Netherlands to be there, and that's quite amazing because. In my father's family, everybody played rugby. My father started himself, and then all his brothers followed, and they together, so 7 brothers together, played in the Dutch national team. So next to, I would say, that entrepreneurship, and the delis, like you mentioned, this was another component that came into my life on a very early start. My mother didn't want me to play rugby because she wanted to keep me pretty, but it didn't work, Mark. When I was 12, I really said, okay, I let my football shoes behind, and I joined what I wanted to join, which was so part of my family. Mm-hmm. And in rugby, like you say, it's quite comparable, with I would say working life. But in rugby, basically. Every player, has his own competence and value, basically on the field, and that is also appreciated because everybody has their own role, in that setting. As a player, of course, you need to outperform, your own opponent, but it's about working together. It's about working together to get the best team result. And also as a team, to try to learn and get better. So you do your trainings, you do your exercise, you have your games, but it's about continuous improvement, to work together. And in rugby, basically, everybody needs to be accountable to deliver for those components that they are. But also, if there is somebody who has basically a weaker spot on that day, you really try to help each other. You try to be there for each other, and if your mate is basically not having a difficult time, you try to help him, to get through that difficult time. So in that reference, there is a lot of say reference back, if you think about it, to business. Besides that, I think rugby has some great values. One, of course, team sport, which is it's a real team sport, being there for each other, but also values of everybody can play rugby. You know what I mean? And you really see that. You see people being doctors, but also people basically having a normal job. So it's a real mix, of different diversities together. And next to that, you build friendships for life. Basically, people are there not only on the field, but also afterwards. So I started playing when I was 12, and those are still close friends of mine, that are really truly with me. And I can imagine when I'm later 65, still doing activities together and being there for each other. So that is something nice. And wherever you go in the world and you meet people from rugby, you speak the same language. You know each other. You're integral people. You like to make fun. And that's also important. But you really try to do the right things also. So I really appreciate those values that basically rugby brought to me.
Yeah, more than any other sport, I think. Rugby and well, the things you were describing there, they're metaphors for life, really, and looking
Right.
after each other, working together, supporting each other.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's kind of a bit of a cliche, but the thing about rugby, you batter the hell out of each other for an hour and a half, and then afterwards it's in the bar and have a few beers together in it, and
Absolutely.
you know, all the battles are forgotten. And I think that's something in the workplace as well, that we can you know, work hard, and you know, we're not trying to trip anybody up. We're all just trying to do our best, and then go and have a drink afterwards, metaphorically.
Absolutely. You work hard, you play hard, I always say, and then you enjoy afterwards, right? That you appreciate.
Yes, and I like me rugby too. We'll come back. More of that later.
Mark.
No. As you were going through your early days of work experience and building up, can you recall personal mentors and influencers that impact you today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had the honor to work one side for an American company before, so that was GE, General Electric, and of course, also in the time that we had a great leader, you know, as a CEO like Jack Welch. Later on, of course, I worked 12, now 15 years for Atradius, and I must say I always encountered great leaders to work for, and leaders are there for you, you know, to basically develop and create that environment for you to be successful, but also act as a reference of how to act and behave, and also be there, you know, for the business and what is expected from you. So there can be a real inspiration, you know, to the way you act, you are as a person and leader yourself, you know, in the organization. And leadership is in everybody, right? I mean, it's just, you know, how do you make the best thing, you know, to make work better, you know, and make changes that improve basically situations, and everybody can pick up that ball, you know, to make that difference. I must say, in my career, I worked once time for not such a good leader, for a manager that wasn't so good, and that also really gave me good input. It was a tough time, I can tell you, but I tried to surround me with mentors and to see, okay, how can I manage my manager? But it gave me also a lot of inputs to think, okay, what are things that you don't want to do as a leader? Because that sometimes can also act as a mirror, to think, okay, what are these people then doing, which is not good, that you can also then make sure basically you don't do yourself. So anybody you work for can always, you know, act as a mirror, but the greatest mirrors, of course, are those ones, you know, that really inspire.
We were saying earlier that you kind of travel normally in normal times. You're traveling pretty well all the time, and in my own experience of similar kind of roles, that's not something that everybody can do and sustain for a long period of time, being on the road and different countries, hotels. So there must be times when you're tired. You turn up at Hong Kong or wherever after a long flight, and you're not on top form. How do you then kind of take yourself from you'd rather just be at home, and how do you motivate yourself and then your teams in those moments?
Yes, of course, sometimes you are tired. I must say, I as a leader, I spend quite some time, on personal balance, and make sure, I'm healthy and fit. That is number one, right? I mean, you have your responsibility there yourself. Also, had to stay in shape. But what makes that difference for me then? We are in 34 countries now, and people then also look for inspiration, and they also like to meet basically that one that is responsible for. And I must say it gives me great energy to then be with the team. There are again different cultures, different values, a different environment again, and spending then the time with the team to interact, learn from them, listen to them, but also give them inspiration, energy, of like, okay, where we stand today, but where we go, and what will that be in for them together, and what can they do about it. That really gives you that energy. But I think as a leader, I mean, it's also important to be vulnerable. So you don't have to be perfect. People don't expect perfection. So vulnerability, and also when you are not in a good shape, and to express that maybe, is also okay. Because people like to work with people that are human, that are basically also like themselves, having their challenges. You know what I mean? And that is normal. And to share that and to be vulnerable and to express that, that's okay. And people will understand that. They just will respect you more as a leader if you do that. That's my biggest learn, just to be myself and be, who you are. So if you're tired, you're tired.
That's a big takeaway, actually. I think, not to try and create a facade that people think that's what you should be. I'm the boss, so therefore I got to be
right,
short with people, or not aggressive, but
right.
This kind of So I think you're right. And to share things like you got family and whatever, but without maybe stepping over the line, but to share, that, like you said, at the end of the day, you're the people that you're working with. One day will be, some of them could take your job. And the other interesting thing I really value that you said too was that the enthusiasm is contagious. Right? Of course. So you kind of tap into the energy of your teams and vice versa.
Vice versa, absolutely. That goes two ways. That how you create energy in a team, and make it circle around.
Yeah, and obviously it goes without saying that the opposite is kind of also happens if you're negative. Yeah, that's also very catching too.
Absolutely. It's two-way street.
We said that in the last 15 years or so, that you've grown to 34 offices around the world and so on. Are there other things you've identified that have changed in that time too?
Absolutely. Yeah, for us, it's really, of course, a roadmap, for continuous improvement, and also centering our efforts around our customers. As an organization, we try to continuously learn. We don't say that we are perfect, but there's always space, to basically improve. And of course, in now settings, a lot of possibilities constantly change. So technology is really there, to enable. So we are on this moment investing quite some effort around technology. Probably everybody also on the looking at this video stream are looking at artificial intelligence, to basically see, okay, how can we be smarter? How can we basically use basically our human capital on those elements that really basically matters, so on those high value activities where we can use I would call the digital workforce more on those activities that are lower value type of interactions. And so we can actually spend basically the time that we have available on those complexer customer interfacing or data interfacing type of activities, so we maximize basically the results that we can bring for our customers. So we are constantly looking also at push out dialers, video messaging, online payments, basically how do we direct debtors, to streamline basically and maximize basically those results. So that's a continuous process, of improvement.
The technology is going to be the biggest, or
yes,
it's the biggest transformation that's going to take place. But do you think there are still the old ways that still work and will probably always work? And
what we see also, Mark, is that basically, I always say culture eats strategy for breakfast. It is also about, we are a people business, is basically making sure you have the right culture. And that culture really makes the difference. So how do you engage basically your people in that journey and make them part of that journey, but they also feel they can make a difference, that they're putting that customer first, that they help each other in good times, but also like in bad times, but also they have that mindset, to say, okay, how can I continuously improve and get better? And that's of course easy said and done, but how do you create that environment? And we are a people business, and like you say, same like us now. It's about people and people making the difference. So how do you basically get people to be engaged? How do you include them? But also how do you get that human aspect basically being there, because at the end we are just humans, so we also have our good things, but we also have our challenges. So it's about making that real, and having that human touch also with our customers, that personalized type of approach, that is critical, and those are the things that will never change, I believe. So some things technology will take over, but I think people always will value people, and that is really key.
Yeah, I would go along with that, and I think always remembering, no matter what you say, as a leader, or even if you're just a fellow employee, that as you're sharing your knowledge and so on, it may not always be picked up the same way you're intending that you're saying it, and to have that empathy and to listen and to and to perhaps just ask the question, what did you mean by that, or where can I help you more, and so on. And you said it lovely there, that people buy people at the end of the day. Now, whether that's friendships, employees, teammates, or buyer-seller relationships, it's always going to boil down to people. You're not going to buy you're not really going to buy a website. You're going to buy the personality beyond it, aren't you?
Right. Totally agree.
How do you define personal and professional success then?
Great question. Because that brings
it's a bit of a biggie.
No, it really brings you back, to why you're there, right? I mean, and what is and it's also the most difficult question. And I must say, when I was in my mid-30s, I was really started to think, because I had my career and I was really developing fast, and it's like, what really drives you? You know what I mean? What makes you tick? And that this really is something to think about. And what makes me tick is basically to grow and develop people, seeing people personal growth happening around me. So as people grow, basically I grow and the business grows. But I get a real fulfillment from seeing personal growth and development, and also satisfaction. Basically. In our people. And when I started, basically we measured this famous all-employee satisfaction score, and that was around a 6.6, and now we are at a 7.8. And that really makes me happy, because that means if our people are more happy and they're more satisfied and they feel they can personally develop and grow, that means we can better service our customers and we get stronger as a business. But it's really also for myself. As a leader, of course, results are great, but the real kick I get when I see people growing from one role to another and going for that next challenge and developing themselves to that as a next person, not only in work, but also in personal life, because you need to find that right balance. And that makes me really proud and happy, I would say, Mark.
As you say, results only really come about if you've got engaged people, right? Unhappy teams don't make for good results, do they?
Right.
So and I think in personal life as well, it's you do the best you can for the people around you, don't you? Set them on
and
their
also
way.
brings back that idea of continuous improvement, and I've noticed for myself in my life that was really, but it is about that continuous improvement. How do you create that environment, not only in processes, systems and application, but the biggest challenge is, of course, that human, that personal aspect, of how do you get people better, and how do you develop them and grow them, and as they grow, develop, basically, that has a positive impact, on business and for your customers.
Sure. So as a company executive, and we're in pretty turbulent times right now, early in 2021 as we're speaking. What kind of challenges do you face as the senior exec of Atradius Collections?
Of course, the traditional ways of working due to COVID, basically disappeared. That was number one, and two, it was really important for us, of course, that our people around the world were safe. That was the first importance. But two is of course, how do you create that remote management type of setting, and having that ability for people to continue to do their work, on a day-to-day. But also, how do you maintain that engagement, like you mentioned, because there is suddenly this steep hill in front of us, which is quite challenging. And how do you make them part of that journey? How do you make them still continue to basically do their work on a day-to-day basis in the best way? But second, also that you basically take them, to that next level. As of course during the period now, we're now, I would say, as we speak, 10 months in this COVID situation. Of course, it's also how do you maintain basically that situation, because people are vulnerable on this moment, right? I mean, they have personal challenges sometimes, that the kids are at home, they need to take care of their schoolings, they do their work, but how do they keep going to that extra mile, for the business also next to that, and taking into account being realistic, because you cannot push them too much. But second, also, how do they go that extra mile for the customer? And that's why I'm so proud. I must say, I just launched something on LinkedIn, and that we have such a absolute strong results, in 2020 for our customers, and that they have again recognized us with a better score. So that shows basically, although we went in a very challenging environment, that we continue to deliver.
And I think it kind of takes you back a bit to the rugby analogy of earlier, that most friendships, relationships, and many long-term relationships, as you mentioned earlier, and including clients in this case, they're always forged out of adversity. More so out of difficult times. You kind of remember, as you said earlier, how you supported each other, whether it's your immediate teams, some of your customers that are probably in stuck right now. So there are many positives that can be taken from this time.
No, and we developed, as a unit, this sort of business, this manifesto, and one of those elements, like you mentioned, for example, in the manifesto is also because we are all different around the world. I always call ourselves the Starbucks concept, but the coffee tastes different in each country, and because we are different, that makes us unique. Because that's what we can bring to customers, but. In those environments, it's really, okay, how do you ensure that you're there for each other and reach out for each other to help each other? And I must say, I'm really proud about my people in that way. Because they are there for each other. They really helped each other, and they reach out to each other. And that makes me proud as a leader, that they are there, for each other. That's special.
I think that's the message. And I think that's a really inspiring place to finish, really. You're saying that everything is about people and caring for each other, isn't it? Right. And I think that's the most important thing that we can all take, isn't it, as perhaps our personal hopes and dreams going forward, that we just look out for each other. Yes.
Right.
And I think it's been a lovely interview, Raymond. Thank you so much. And I think that's a really warm-hearted place to finish, and I thank you so much for your time helping us prepare this. And I know I'm sure you've got a million things to do once we finish the interview, but really, on behalf of Callisto Ground, thank you so much for doing this today.
Oh, you're welcome, Mark, and thank you for the opportunity, because that's always great, and I hope it will inspire others to basically think about themselves. And I think leaders have a lot to bring, you know what I mean, and that's what I hope, in the period to come. I would say that there will be more leaders in the world, that there will be there, that don't always pursue their own self-interest, but are there, to make the world a little bit better. And if we all do that together, I think we can create an environment for the generations to come. That there is a sustainable world, going forward, but also a good place to live. And I think that is where leadership is there, so, and it can start with yourself. So that's an important message, I would say.
Raymond van der Loos, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Mark.